and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here once again with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how are you doing?
Good to be back, mate. Good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the Premier League season has started. Whilst it hasn't started for Villa, a lot of fixtures were played yesterday. At the time of recording, we're actually recording before the Sunday games of game week 1. And we thought, we need to get a Premier League season preview out there for you guys to listen. And, having 4 games played yesterday may make this a bit easier, may make a few decisions for ourselves after watching some of the games. But we're ultimately going to be deciding the bottom 3, who finishes mid-table, top 6, and of course, where Aston Villa finish. That's the most important thing. So Dan, I think first of all, we'll start with the bottom 3. It makes sense to start from the bottom and work our way up. I guess, again, if we say bottom 3, I'm not necessarily going for particular order because I think this can change. And obviously, you're putting a massive target on your head when you do these kinds of videos and podcasts on YouTube because people, who support the team are going to come in the comments at the end of the season when they undoubtedly finish in 5th or whatever, and we're going to get absolutely rinsed for it. But for your bottom 3, Dan, who are you going for?
I think it's going to be a tough season for the teams coming up from the Championship. I think I've got Fulham and Baggies to finish in the bottom 3, which I'm sure Villa fans will be very happy about. And I think Leeds will do all right. I don't think they're necessarily going to, set the league alight. I know they were very impressive against Liverpool yesterday. I've got them finishing sort of 12th, 13th, about that. I think they'll survive. I think they're just that little bit, and I use naive in a good sense, tactically, and to be honest, I just think they're that little bit different, that little bit out there whereby, I looked at the squad that started yesterday and pound for pound, on paper, it's not a great squad.
No.
It's not particularly talented. If there were any other manager involved, really, mate, I'd be backing them for relegation. But I think just under Bielsa, I think for the first 6 months of the season, I think they'll explode out the gates. I think by Christmas, they'll be even sat in the top half just because I think teams will take a little while to figure them out. I think, as I said, they're just that little bit different tactically, but I think they'll drop off slightly, as Bielsa teams do. They're notorious for dropping off in the second half of the season. And I think that's what will happen with Leeds, and I think we'll see them about 12th, 13th. But I've got Baggies and Fulham. Without going into too much detail in the bottom 3, because I think Baggies just haven't got the money. I haven't seen them spend enough. John Percy was tweeting yesterday that their budget pre-lockdown was 40 million. The coronavirus hit, it's now about 25. They spent about 20 on the players that they've already brought in, leaving about 5 million, which leaves a strike force of Charlie Austin, Kenneth Zohore and Callum Robinson to keep you in the Premier League, which I don't think is enough. I really like Slaven Bilic, but I think even for him, that's a big enough job. I think Fulham are just a bit too nice. I actually like a lot of the deals that they've done. But again, I think you're really asking a lot of the likes of Mitrovic. I don't really see where the goals are going to come from. I think they're going to be quite leaky as well. So I've got them to go back down. And then the last squad that I've got to drop into the Championship is Brighton.
Wow.
Which is an interesting one because I actually like a lot of the business that they've done this season. I think they've been very shrewd. They've only spent a couple million, but they look at the players like Joel Veltman, that Adam Lallana. They've brought in some really. I'm going to back a few of their players. Like Alex McAllister is a really good player. He's a really, really good player, and I back him for a breakout season. But I think they're a bit too nice.
Yeah,
I don't see him having that aggression, that sort of win at all costs attitude. I like Neil Maupay, but is he going to get that team the sort of 15, 20 goals that they need to keep them up? And I ask Brighton a very similar question to I ask of Fulham, whereby if Maupay or Mitrovic aren't scoring your goals, who is? And for that reason, those are my 3 teams that I'm picking to get relegated this year.
I think you're pretty spot on there. I'm going to go with Fulham and West Brom as well. I think I look at the deal for Dianga that they signed from West Ham. I think he's an absolute baller. I think he's going to have a good season in the Premier League. A very quick and skillful winger, can play on both sides. And anyone who watched the Championship last season knows what he's all about. And I think you just got to look at what Mark Noble tweeted, when he was sold to tell you how highly the West Ham players rated him as well. And yeah, West Ham are going to be my other pick to go down. I think David Moyes he's a dead man walking, really. You know, they've not really invested. West Ham, the owners are a mess. They don't really know what they want to do with the club. I think, you know, coming back to Moyes, it was the easy option. It made sense. He kept them up. They weren't really playing brilliant football post-lockdown. And, you know, it was like almost a three-horse race in terms of who would finish in that 18th place spot between us, West Ham and Watford. And I think West Ham, I mean, Mikel Antonio absolutely carried them. And I don't see him doing that for the whole season. They've not really invested a lot. And again, I think one thing we should preface, if there are fans of other clubs that are watching this, the transfer window's open for another month. It'd be unfair of us to do this video in a month's time, knowing what the tables look like, seeing how teams have performed. We've had 4 games to go off these predictions, and to be fair, they're not going to really have informed that much going into them. It was a good set of fixtures actually yesterday, Dan.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, West Ham, they've not really invested. I think, you know, there's only so many times MC Moyes can come back and keep them up. I think West Ham, to be honest, need the relegation to reset themselves. I think much like we did, really. Yeah, I think it's just going to be a really tough season for them. I think something I noticed particularly in the Liverpool Leeds game yesterday, and that I was saying to the chefs at work when we were watching it, was that I think the fans, like without fans, I think you've got the lower, you know, the teams that are going to finish within the bottom 10 are going to be doing much better away from home. If Anfield was packed to the rafters yesterday, there's no chance Leeds go at it like they did yesterday and get 3 goals. And I don't think Liverpool would have been as poor as they were as well. 3 goals from set plays. It's very unlike Liverpool, but I'm sure we'll get onto them much later in the podcast. So yeah, I've got West Brom, Fulham, and West Ham to go down. Next up, Dan, we'll go for the mid-table teams. This is probably the hardest position to predict because, you know, this can be separated by 1 goal. This can be separated by a point, 3 points. You know, this is really no man's land. It's where if you're battling against relegation, it's where you want to be towards the end of the season, just because you know you've got that 5-point cushion. You know, as long as you get that comfortable 40 points, which has been going down actually in recent years, hasn't it? It's not. You've not really needed 40 points within the past 3 seasons. You know, this mid-table obscurity place is nothing to be celebrated, you know, unless you are obviously fighting relegation. Who have you got there, Dan? Because I think there's a few interesting candidates. If you look at the season Sheffield United had last season, it'd be interesting to see if Wolves can carry on from their form from last season. Obviously, playing lots of European games did hinder them, but, you know, what a great season they had.
Yeah, so sort of packing up the mid-table, I'm going to sort of go between 9th and about 12th, sort of around there, because I think 8th and above, you've got some really good teams. So I think Southampton are going to have a really good year this year. I like a lot about what they've done. I think Hassan Holte is a great manager, and I'm sort of backing. I know they lost yesterday to Crystal Palace, so it's probably not a great call, but I really like a lot about what they offer. I think Shea Adams came out of himself during lockdown, and I think we're going to see a better season from him, and one that Southampton fans have been hoping for. You know, he got 4 in 4 post lockdown, and I think when the pressure came off and the fans weren't there, he just played his natural game, and I think him and Danny Ings could be a really good partnership this season. I like a lot of the business that they've done. Mohamed Salisu from Valladolid, he's a great centre back, and they've got him for such a great fee. I don't think, you know, he's going to rise to sort of world-beaten levels this season, but he's certainly going to go show signs of it. And I think Southampton, you know, if Ings can hit the form that he did last season, I don't think he needs to go and get as many goals as he did, sort of golden boot level, but you know, he can contribute a lot. I think Southampton are set for a really good season. Around them, I think we'll have Everton. They've done some great business this season, and I love everything that they've done, but I think it's just a season I think, you know, when we're looking at them breaking top 6, which is ultimately what they're aiming to do by the looks of it, I think it will just take a little while for the squad to formulate and things to fall into place. And I think the holes that were there last season will still be there to a certain extent. I think they'll certainly be better. You know, I think last season, they finished 14th.
Yeah.
15th, like that last season. So there'll be definite improvement. I think they'll make up 5 or 6 places, but are they quite Leicester, Wolves? I think Wolves are still a better team than them. I think Leicester is still a better team than them. I think, and then you get onto your Spurs, your Arsenals. I don't think they're quite on that level. So I think they'll be, top half. And then I think you've got to say again, mate, I think you've got to put Burnley there. They do it every single season.
Solid.
Teams still don't know how to contain Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes.
They never will.
Which is crazy, isn't it? But they don't. James Tarkowski is a great player. They'll be solid. Nick Pope is a Premier League Player of the Year candidate. So every year people pick Burnley, it's like, right, this is the season that they go down, and it just never is. I saw Sean Dyche talking about Dwight McNeil.
Yeah.
What an underrated player he is. He played every single game last season for Burnley. And in a side that finished 10th, he played 38 games and was nowhere near a shout for Premier League Young Player of the Year. Not even
It's
a
a
nominee.
disgrace.
It is. And Sean Dyche was saying how hardly done by that is. And you can't help but agree. If Dwight McNeil was on loan from a Chelsea or a Liverpool, he'd be in the England squad. Let's face it, Colin Hudson-Odoi was. Calvin Phillips made it when he was in the Championship. You've got a kid that's playing literally game in, game out every single weekend in the Premier League, and is so underrated. And I think they're going to do it again this year, mate.
Yeah.
They possess that toughness. I think, especially with no fans, you were talking at Leeds, they're just going to have a sense that they can go at teams, make it nasty for them. And they've just got that togetherness. That squad has been together for so long now that they've just got such a chemistry. And I think they're going to do it again. And sort of lastly, just to touch on that, teams are going to be in and around there. I think Newcastle, I was backing them for relegation, to be honest with you, mate. But I think the signings of Ryan Fraser, Callum Wilson, have done so much for me in terms of where they're going to finish. I think, we saw Callum Wilson get his debut goal last night. Jeff Hendrick was brilliant too for them last night. Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson bring that chemistry of having played together for so long, but just injects a real quality. And mate, I think if you're looking at Ryan Fraser and St. Maximan on the wings with Callum Wilson up top, Joel Linton can't do any worse than he did last night. Going to be better. And I think when you look at that forward, it's actually a pretty decent team, mate. And I think they'll be up there. But no, it's sort of 9th to about 11th. I think we'll have Burnley, Southampton, and Everton.
I think that's pretty, again, similar to what I was thinking. On Newcastle, I think I find it, and I'm sure a lot of Villa fans will agree, it frustrates me seeing how well Steve Bruce is doing. And we need to put aside this agenda, because you've got to be honest, and what he's done at Newcastle has been nothing short of good, to be honest. It's what Newcastle needed. Is he better than Rafa? I don't know, but he's been backed a hell of a lot more. And I think they've been really smart in the kind of business that they've done. So yeah, I'd probably put them at like 12th or 13th. I don't think it's going to be a season of anything too special, but I think, without the shackles, they can play with such a freedom, and we know what it's like watching a Steve Bruce team play with shackles on. We watched it for far too long in the Championship. I think, Everton as well. They're going to be. To be honest, I've probably got Everton at 8th. I think I just look at that midfield. It's a complete overhaul in that midfield of Allen, Doucouré, and James. I think my main issue with Everton is I look and I'm like, the strikers aren't really going to get the goals. I'm not entirely convinced by Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Moise Kean hardly set the world alight either. So I kind of look at the strikers, and I'm probably seeing 20 goals between the two of them. Maybe I'm being a bit too disrespectful to Calvert-Lewin, because he did have quite a good season last season, but I'm not sure if he can replicate that. I don't look at him and see him as like a Harry Kane type, or even a Wilson, who I think, you're guaranteed goals with them. I'm not quite sure he possesses that kind of threat yet. So I'd be interested to see what Everton do. I think as well, they're not traditional Ancelotti strikers either. You look at some of the players he's had over the years. They've been. You've either got your target men who are quite nimble on their feet, like Benz or Higuain, but then you've just got to look at his Napoli side and that dynamic front three of Mertens, Insigne, and do you know what, the third name's escaped me.
Was Gonzalo again at the time?
It was, yeah, actually, yeah, he came on loan, didn't he? But again, it's a dynamic front three. Um, Everton don't really seem to be playing that way either. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what the midfield can do. I think there are goals there, and they're going to be so hard to break down. And you've got the flair of James. I think they've got the makings of a good team, and I'm happy for Everton, to be honest, because you want to see a club what is a similar size to ours doing well. I've got a lot of time for Everton. I always have. I always will. I think, yeah, Burnley are going to be doing well. I think mid-table. I think you've just got to look at the way they recruit players. I know they let Jeff Hendrick go. He didn't really play too much, and one man's trash is another man's is gem. He's probably going to do quite well for Newcastle, especially considering he went for free. But picking up McNeil, who'd played for I think both City and United at youth level, picking him up and nurturing him. They're in a really good area in terms of picking up talent from big clubs like Liverpool, United, City, where they can bring them in, nurture them, give them first team opportunities. And McNeil had a fantastic season. So yeah, I'd probably have Burnley finishing around mid-table as well.
I think Ben Mee was formerly of City as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he I think he played at City for about 9 years, and despite breaking Wes's leg, is an okay centre half. Although he does like to leave the afters on, which is a bit questionable. But yeah, they've done well as well. Dare I say it? I think Leicester may be kind of flirting with the mid-table mark. I think it may be asking a lot for them. We saw after lockdown they did struggle quite a bit. They had injuries to the likes of Maddison. I look at Vardy, he's getting on, but that didn't stop him from bagging goals last season. They've had to sell Chilwell. They don't really have any money to reinvest either, because the owner's business is duty free, and there's obviously no travel right now, so it's not like they've got a very good flow of cash in their other opportunities. So yeah, I think Leicester may also finish in that mid-table range, Dan. Before we go on to the top six, and I think we should predict these exactly where they're going, because these are the money makers. We've got to go for Villa. We've spoke about other teams. Now we recorded some stuff last night, Dan. It may not be out depending on when people are listening to this. In terms of transfers, but we didn't mention it at the time. But obviously, Villa played a friendly yesterday against Manchester United. I've actually got the United squad up on my phone, but we beat them 1-0. Everyone's seen the Watkins goal. I mean, first of all, the switch from Jack, mate, it was so good, wasn't it? Yeah. It was just beautiful, and I don't think I've ever seen Trez rifle a crossing like that. And it was just nice to actually have someone in the middle of the box to get on the end of a cross, really, Dan.
Yeah, for sure. It was a lovely goal. It looked really good. I don't know if you've also seen the clip of Connor falling over whilst taking a corner, but
I've not seen that one.
That's quite funny. So it's the commentator's there, and he's like, and Connor Horan here picking the ball up to deliver a corner with his absolute wand of a left peg, and he's waxing lyrical about how good Connor's left peg is. Connor rocks up and stacks it, and the ball sort of just dribbles out, and United start counter-attacking. I think that's, you get out the way before the start of the season, don't you? But no, it looks really good, mate. To add into that the Arsenal result, and you've got wasn't the makings of a pretty good pre-season, and we're going to touch on the game a little bit later, but I think that Burton game coming up has sort of got a bit of a pre-season feel to it as well, mainly because we always play Burton in pre-season. Just to again warm the team up before we get underway in the Premier League. It's a nice game to have and a pretty friendly cup tie. But in terms of where I see Villa finishing in the league, I think, and I hate to, this is a real get out of jail free card, but it really does depend on the signings that we make.
Yeah.
And I know that is a very general statement, but with Villa, I think it rings true just because the players that we're bringing in are such a different calibre of player to the ones that we have. If we didn't sign anyone, I'd be nailing us on for relegation. But if we sign all the players that we're linked with, mate, I think we'll be pushing towards the upper end of the bottom half. And, I think it really can range in about 7 or 8 places, depending on who we sign. But given how optimistic I think Villa fans are at the moment about the window, didn't think I'd be saying that about 2 weeks ago. I think we'll finish 14th, 15th.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I was going to go with 16th, Dan.
Mhm. I
It's,
don't think it's going to be one where we sort of set the world alight. I think that's a little bit too early yet. I think the standard of the Premier League is just so tough at the moment, and you know, I'd be very happy with that. To be honest with you, mate, I think this season I just like it to be a bit calmer.
yeah,
I can't be arsed with these like games on the last day of the season. Like, can we please have it all wrapped up in about 3 or 4 games to go? It'd be really nice. Yeah, so I think that's sort of where you'll see us finishing this season. I think it's, we're not. I think there's still holes in the squad. There's still positions and players that I'm not convinced with. But those players are going to get better. I want to see a lot more from that target this season. I think this season is a really pivotal one for Esri and Tyrone,
yeah,
because believe it or not, if we get all the players in that we want to, and we're looking at that front three, and it's like Watkins, Rashika, potentially Traore, we've got Jack, McGinn, Douglas in midfield, then Tyrone and Esri quickly become the weak link in that team
yeah,
for me, which is pretty remarkable, because they were probably our best players after lockdown. But if you look how good that attack could be, how good that midfield is, you then look at the Trents and you're like, Matt Target, Esri Konsa, Tyrone Mings, they're probably the positions that you look to upgrade, and so it's a big season for them, especially as we'll do upgrade up level in a goalkeeper as well, hopefully
yeah,
with Martinez. I think you sort of look at that defense and go, maybe that's actually a weak link in this team. So it's a big season for them. I want to see a lot in terms of them proving themselves, that we don't have to go and invest in another left back. We don't have to go and buy another centre back. So yeah, I think that's what you'll see this season, mate.
yeah. I think, the most important thing, we finished 17th last season with the 18th, most expensive wage budget. So we definitely punched above our weight last season, really, when you're looking at the finances and when we finished. And I think, if we can improve on that, I'm more than happy with 16th or anywhere above the relegation zone. Again, I think this season it's going to be a strange one. I think we will have to take into account there being no fans, deals being potentially harder to do. Obviously, we've seen that these deals are coming a lot later than we would have liked, but at least they're getting done. That is the most important thing. And I think you're asking not a lot, but you're asking different things of your players to play without fans, without support, without the booze, because at the end of the day, that's why they do it. They've earned the right to play in front of 42,000 fans at Villa Park that are cheering for their support, booing them when they do something like, I don't know, Conor Hourihane getting substituted. They've ultimately earned that right, and they're used to performing in that circumstances. And I think last season, possibly the most disappointing thing about it was, I think we all expected El Ghazi to turn into Cristiano Ronaldo after hearing, every Villa player wax lyrical about how he's the best trainer in the world, and it just didn't happen. So it'll be interesting to see how certain players adapt. Again, we've already had half a season of this pretty much, but looking at even the link with Traore, and I'm sure we'll discuss that in a future Transfer Remember podcast. The French league got cancelled, so this is a man who hasn't played football for a very long time. So again, these things have to be considered. So I'd be more than happy with 16th, but after having an unbeaten pre-season, and hopefully adding Rashitska and Martinez, I think we could be looking at Villa pushing up, as you say, to that upper bottom half of the table, which I think ultimately Villa fans will be happy with. The higher you finish, obviously, the more money you get, which means we can reinvest again next year and go on to try and breach into that top half of the table. And I don't think there's no reason why we can't do that. So yeah, I think now, Dan, top six. It's always a difficult one to call, because you know who's going to be there. It's the positions that are important. We'll start with sixth. I'm going to go with Manchester United in sixth, Dan.
It's an interesting call, mate. I don't think they'll be making the top four for me either. I've actually got them in fifth, but I've got Wolves in sixth.
Okay.
It's a bit of a rogue one, but obviously, I think one thing that people are forgetting is Wolves have no European football this season.
Yeah.
Which really hindered them last season. They didn't have the squad depth for it. They've made some interesting business for sure. I think we're going to see certain players that they actually signed last season sort of rise to the fore. I think Daniel Podence is going to be a lot better than he was in January. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's going to shine. I think Fabio Silva is a really interesting signing. You know, if you didn't know too much about him, you know, you've paid £35 million for a player that's played 11 games for Porto and scored 2 or 3 goals. But you know, when you delve a little further into what he actually is, he's Porto's youngest ever scorer. He started scoring and playing for Porto at 16. You know, don't back it. He's not going to get you 20 goals a season, but he's certainly one for the future. I think this is a really big season for Wolves. I think it's Raul's last year. I think Jimenez has one more season at Wolves before like a top team comes and poaches him.
Real Madrid.
Yeah, like genuinely, mate, someone of that level, Barca are crying out for a striker, and I don't actually think Raul Jimenez would be that bad of a call.
Yeah.
I think, but Wolves, there are things that I've got to be convinced by. I thought the selling of Doherty was weird, especially for that low of a fee. And I think we're going to see exactly that puts Adama. I mean, we'll see when they play Sheffield United later exactly how they plan to line up this season. But I think that puts Adama in at right fullback. And I think if he can get a run of consistency, I think they'll be all right. But I've got Wolves in 6th, and I've also got Man United to miss out on the top 4. I've got them in 5th. But yeah, let's hear why you've got them in 6th, mate.
I don't know. I think I look at United and I'm not entirely convinced by Solskjaer being this tactical genius that everyone thinks. I know he beat Pep 4 times in a row. I think, if anything, that tells you more about Pep, how he likes to overcomplicate his tactics in these big games. And I don't think you can deny that. You've just got to look at any Champions League exit. Pep makes it difficult for himself, and I don't think anyone knows why. I think, you know, you've got to really delve deep into Pep's mind to find out why he does these kinds of things in the European games, which means so much to Man City. But I think, and it's so hard to know without being there. And, you know, we're constantly casting judgments over managers and players. And I think, if anything, you know, the All or Nothing documentaries on City and Spurs, obviously the most recent one, I think Jose has actually won a lot of people over. So, you know, these kind of, you know, things that give you an insight. I mean, I know you and I have always been huge Jose fans, but certainly a lot of people have been won over by that. But I don't see anything from the outside of what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer does that makes me scream tactical genius. And I think, you know, being the Man United manager, if you were a decent coach, is possibly the easiest job in the world, because you have no problem attracting players. You have no problem paying big fees. Everybody wants to play for Manchester United. You can't deny that. If an offer comes in, you know, 95% of the time, the player will go. Just to play for the club. It's such a big name and such a powerhouse in English football. But I look at the signing of Van der Beek. He hadn't been great with the Dutch national team. Undoubtedly an absolute baller. We'd seen him in that Ajax team, and I'm surprised he stayed, actually. I thought he would have been one of the first to leave after that Champions League run. But they've not really invested in the defence. I think, from what I'm hearing, Solskjaer wants Umancano from Leipzig, who is, again, a fantastic defender and would probably solve all of their defensive issues. But I look at the centre-back pairing. Bailly's never really fit, and he's, for me, the best centre-back. Lindelof needs a Bailly next to him. I think he can't really do it with anyone else. And the full-backs, for me, are questionable as well. And to be honest, I just look at how even we went to Old Trafford and probably should have walked away with 3 points. I think that tells you everything about how Manchester United are, really. And I think they will miss out on the top 4, more so because I think I look with the time Jose has had with his team. I think he's getting a few signings in. He will ultimately breach into the top 4 for me. I think he's you know, still very much trying to turn around this Tottenham team into a Jose Mourinho team. So for me, yeah, I've got United at 5th. At 6th, sorry. I said 6th. I'm not quite sure who I've got at 5th, actually, but I know I've got Tottenham at 4th.
Well, yeah, I'm in a bit of a sort of North London disagreement with it. I've got Arsenal finishing 4th.
Yeah, I completely forgot about Arsenal.
I've got, I think, Spurs. I don't know. I think you're absolutely right, but the fixture congestion that they've got and the amount of games that they've got to play, because they've got to qualify for the Europa League,
Yeah,
and they've got like 6 games in September, and their first one is it's today. It's
yeah,
today. So between the 13th of September and the end of the month, they've got 6 games. They're going to have to play a crazy amount of football. They've got the Carabao Cup starting as well, and I worry a little about the squad depth. But going on to the top four, I think Arsenal, for the first time in 10 years, 10 years, I'm convinced by. It
really,
feels
wow.
really weird to say that. It feels really weird to say that.
Sorry, I've got a
I
wasp in my
think
room.
not going to say they're the real deal just yet, but I like a lot about Mikel Arteta and what he's done with Arsenal. I think we saw towards the end of last season just how different he's made that side and that feared. I think it's a shame that we're recording this today and not yesterday, because I'm going to feel a little bit of a bandwagoner now after the performance that he put in yesterday.
Yeah,
But Gabriel is a baller, and he's going to sort out a lot in that back line for Arsenal. I don't think they're going to particularly set the world light. I don't know how far Rob Holding at centre back can take you. I think there's
not
certainly
very far.
certainly a ceiling with that. But Aubameyang's going to be a golden boot winner this season for me.
Yeah,
Arsenal have just created a system, and Mikel Arteta has created a system where that a shot. Aubameyang scored it in the FA Cup final, like scored it in the Community Shield, where he's cutting in off the left wing onto that right flank, and he can pick out that bottom corner. He scored a very similar goal against us from a free kick. He's just so good from that position. And Mikel Arteta, I don't know how he's done it, but has seemingly created an offense where Aubameyang just gets that into that position so consistently, and he's the
yeah.
best player in the world from that spot every single time. Is money, and a lot of people mocked the Willian signing, but I quite like it. I think it's a good deal
It's a good
for
bit of
Arsenal.
business, to be fair.
Picking him up, he's such an intelligent attacker. He's such a player whereby if you give him a role, and I think Pepe struggled with this last season, just performing a role and doing a job consistently, knowing exactly where he fit into a team and what was expected of him. I think the expectation weighed him down, and he was trying to do a little too much at times.
Yeah,
William will give you the complete opposite. He just does the basics so well. On his debut, he goes and picks up 2 assists. Arsenal win 3-0. Their attack looks really cohesive, and look, he's not the organs blazing, you know, every fan's going to have him on the back of the shirt kind of signing that Arsenal fans were looking for. But he's a player that's going to come in, do exactly what's asked of him. He's going to get goals. He's going to get assists.
yeah.
Danny Ceballos is going to be good. I like that. Get him back. I think that's big for Arsenal. I've got them to finish in fourth, and I think we'll both have the same team finishing in third, mate, unless I'm mistaken. And that's Chelsea.
Yeah, I've gone for Chelsea in third. I think for the first time in a long time, I think we're going to have a 3-horse title race. I don't see Liverpool consistently putting in the performances throughout the whole season. Uh, I think their title win, I don't want to say it'll be tainted, but certainly in 20 years' time when we're looking back, it's very easy to go Liverpool were the best team in the league. You've got to remember that there was a 2-month hiatus, which allowed them to continue to press so relentlessly. And we'd seen them do that the year before, but ultimately they'd missed out to City. If I'm being honest, I think I'm in a minority here, Dan, but I think City may well win the league. I'm gonna have them down a second. I just think this is potentially the last season Pep has with this squad, and potentially even at Manchester City. And it's so talented, and they dropped off so badly last season, and it's really well, it's not necessarily confusing. They didn't really have a main centre half. They didn't have Fernandinho's presence in the midfield because he was dropping back. I think left back has consistently been a problem for Manchester City for the past 3 years with Mendy's injuries. Zinchenko isn't really a fullback, and they've played Fabian Delph there at times as well. Obviously, he's at Everton now. But I think, we're going to have a 3-horse title race. I think I'm guessing, like you, Dan, ultimately going to have Liverpool winning the league again. But I think this season between Chelsea, City and Liverpool, it's going to be so close because Chelsea have done bits in the window. They've had so much time to prepare. They've addressed the issues with the defence that they've needed to. They've signed a new goalkeeper. They've signed Thiago Silva. I think that signing of Mendy in goal is a genuinely inspiring one, because Kepa at Sabalaga is a questionable keeper, especially for the price tag. And I don't think you can overlook the strength and depth that Chelsea have, but I think it's a bit too early, so I've got them at third.
Yeah, me too, mate. I think I think they're going to be really good this season, but the last 2 seasons have shown you need about 100 points to win the Premier League at the moment, which is nuts, which is mental. And are Chelsea quite the 100 point a season caliber team? Maybe next season, yeah, but not quite yet. I've actually got City winning the league this year.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. I think there is, when Pep teams have got a point to prove, they're a scary animal. You know, we look at, without going back too far, his first season in the Premier League, I think City finished 4th. They were they got beaten 4-1 at Goodison, and people were like, oh, Pep can't do it in the Premier League, Fraudiola, all this sort of stuff started came out, and the next season they were probably the best team the Premier League's ever seen, went and got 100 points, the first ever team to do that, and just set the team alight. And I think when Pep's got a point to prove and he's coming back with a vengeance, that's a scary prospect. Business they've done, as per usual, has been great. I don't think enough has been spoken about Ferran Torres and just what a deal that is for about £25 million. He's a 45 million pound youngster, and he's just been caught in this chaos that's going on at Valencia, and sort of Faisal, what a deal that is. I think this is the season we'll finally, after what feels like decades and decades of talk, this is the year we'll finally see Koulibaly join Man City, whether that's in the rest of the window or in January. I think this is finally still that deal done. And the reason that I've got them finishing first and Liverpool in second, mate, and I think we saw a little bit of this last night, is there is such a feeling when Liverpool won that league of, this is it, we've done it, we've finally done it.
And their own goal.
They've peaked, and Liverpool have done what no Liverpool team had ever done before and won the Premier League. And there is such a feeling of relief, and that they were the one Liverpool side that could do what no had before. And I think, I'm not saying that they can't do it, and I would love to see them do it, because I really like Liverpool. I think they're such a fun team to watch at the moment. But when, if they lose even 5%, even if 5% of Liverpool is, we've done it, and they're playing at 95% this season, I think that's going to be enough for City to catch them and just topple them. I think it's going to be so close again, mate. But even if Liverpool are just that little bit on the beach, having won the Champions League, having won the Premier League, to go again and defend that title against a City team, which it's Aguero. It could be Aguero's last season in the Premier League, which is, for one, really sad. But you can bet your bottom dollar that he's not going to go out with a 16, 17 goal season. That man is going to want to say goodbye to the Premier League in certain style. Mate, I think City might just edge it this season. I think it's going to be really close again. I think Chelsea will be in the running. I think ultimately they'll finish sort of 10 points behind, maybe 10, 15. I don't think they'll, as I say, quite be on that 100 points. I think they'll get plus 80 for sure. But it's going to be so tight this season, mate. I really can't call it. But if you ask me to, I'm going to go with City.
I think my head's telling me Liverpool, but I think my heart, as you say, for all them reasons of Pep with a point to prove, he is. I think City are just going to be blowing teams away 7-0, 5-0, much like they did really when they came back, post lockdown. But yeah, I don't know. I think just to keep it interesting for the video, I'm going to say Liverpool finish. I think they can do it. They looked poor against Leeds. They looked very poor. I think even we would have beaten Liverpool, to be honest, if we'd have played them yesterday, judging off their performances. But yeah, I'm going to go with Liverpool to finish. I think that's a good note to end the podcast on, Dan. We've predicted as much of the Premier League as is feasible. Villa to finish around 15th, 16th, as we've said. Let us know your predictions in the comments below. Where do you think we'll finish? Who do you think will win the title? And we want to know your 3 teams to be relegated, because a lot of the national press and Sky Sports have Villa to be relegated. But, obviously transfer window still open. So much can change within the next 3 weeks. So, yeah, we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel for more content. We will be putting out some more content. There will be a Burton Albion match preview out soon as well for you guys to watch. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.
Chester's essential to fulfilling this got potential. It's the main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang. Chester. 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 He's the main leader of the gang now. Chester.